Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody, depending what time you're listening to this. This is Thoughts, Comments, Opinions, and my name is still Hubert O'Hearn. Welcome to the start of the third week of Thoughts, Comments, Opinions. We have 4 podcasts planned for you this week, and the first one is with the writer Kelly Creighton talking about her book, her novel, The Bones of It. It's an incredible book. As you'll hear, I can make comparisons to Catcher in the Rye, a little bit of Martin Amis times Arrow, all kinds of absolutely fabulous books that The Bones of It echo, but it does not in any way copy. Truly hope you enjoy this. And as always, I hope that if there are any guests, any topics that you would like to hear discussed on this show, please let us know. There's all kinds of URLs, email addresses, you name it. If you look down at the bottom of the page, I'll be typing them all in quite carefully. But for now, sit back, relax, fire up a Podtini, and listen to the words as they fly through the air. We'll be right back. And with us today we have Kelly Creighton talking to us from Northern Ireland about her book, The Bones of It. Hello, Kelly. How are you?
Hi, Hubert. I'm great. Thanks. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. So, is the weather in my old stomping grounds in Northern Ireland as grey as it is today in Mayo?
It is. It's very grey. It's humid, but it's pretty dull on it. Yeah.
Aye, tis that. So, The Bones of It, and I've already mentioned on the intro and in the review, incredible novel, and not just incredible being a first novel, but an incredible novel in general. What would you like the listeners to know about it? What's the story about as far as you want to go in terms of revealing that?
Yes. The story is really a father and son story, I think, about 2 men who have got a lot of anger that are coming from possibly the same place or different places. And it's a story about what really struck me was I was at a talk about the peace process, and the term was used that people, children of the Troubles, were swept up by the brush of terrorism.
Yeah.
And although it's not really a Troubles novel, I just thought, what are young people today swept up in? So I think that was the kernel of the idea for it.
It's very much like then what I felt when I lived in Bangor, just down the road from you. I lived there for about 10 months, and it was the first significant amount of time I spent in Northern Ireland, and I loved it. I have tons of really great friends there and so forth, but and that was just last year, so almost 20 years after the Good Friday Agreement and all that. But it's always there,
Yeah,
that little background tension of it,
it is. Yes.
Yeah, and I find that informs the novel because, as you say, it's not a Troubles novel. I don't think I'm giving anything away to say that there aren't bombs are going off, but how the father Duke views people is still very much from the time that he spent during it.
Yes.
Yeah. Was there any specific incident in the press or whatever that made the idea come to you that this is something you wanted to write about?
Although I wanted to focus on someone who was not a child of the Troubles,
Yeah.
but born on the periphery of peace. And I suppose I was quite interested in the whole flag debacle,
Mm.
and how there were children who were aged 16 who were born after the Good Friday Agreement, and they were getting into trouble. But I didn't want Scott to come from that. I wanted him to come from a nice seaside resort in a seaside town with a grandmother he's been raised with the grandmother who hasn't really told him about the troubles. He's quite kind of removed from that, and he's removed from the city. And I wanted it to be set in a nice, quiet place so that we could hear Scott and he could be reflective.
Yes, yeah. Now, you wrote the novel as part of the I forget the exact name of the competition or challenge, but the Write a Novel in November
Yes,
contest.
that's
Yeah.
right.
Um, I'm trying to think how to phrase that. I've never tried anything like that. Had you thought about, because you're a poet and short story writer as well, had you thought about being a novelist before, or was it the competition itself that put that in your head?
Yes, well, I did write a book that took a couple of years to write, and it has now been shelved, but I look at that as my apprenticeship.
Uh-huh.
I just had the idea, and it was just percolating for the bones of it for about 3 or 4 months. And that was just quite a spontaneous thing. I didn't plan to take part in NaNoWriMo, but I just saw a lot about it on social media, and I thought this might be a good way to just stop procrastinating and just start the book. And I think it worked well for me to get it all out and stay in the voice right by writing it quickly.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it would enforce discipline. And obviously, you went back, you edited and redrafted after uh, uh, November. But how how many words a day were you churning out? Like, what was your writing process for it?
Yeah, it was about 2,000 words a day. I actually, I think it's 1,666 is the target, and some days I would have wrote more than others, and then you would have had days off here and there so that you didn't completely sicken yourself off it. But I think that I got it done in about 3 weeks, and then as you say, Hubert, it was months and months of going back and going over it again and trying to polish the book up afterwards.
Had you laid it out at all structurally before you started writing it, or did you just start writing in Scott's voice and let Scott, for the listener, Scott being the son,
Yeah.
the first person narrator, or did you just sort of follow his lead?
Well, no, from writing short stories, I find that there's only ever one short story that seemed to work by just doing the fly by the seat of your pants method for me. So I planned it out structurally. And I did that once I thought I'm going to do NaNoWriMo, I'm going to try to get the book written. And I probably spent a week or so before I did it, just plotting out and finding the structure for the book that I wanted to tell the story in.
One thematic aspect of it that I really like, and I don't know if this was intentional to reflect Northern Ireland or what, but there's very much an either or. Claudia, who's an important character in it, an immigrant from Poland who befriends Scott, and she's always asking. I forget specifically if it was tulips or daffodils or whatever, tea or coffee. And Scott both works in a nursery and also for a tree pruner. It's growing things and cutting them down. Where did that come from, or did it just sort of happen? Oh, and I'll tell the listeners, if you hear the odd grumbling, I have a border collie on my lap. So,
Right. um, that that came from, I think there's just little things that come in that happen in everyday life. And at one stage I was working in a job, where they really contracted too many people into this particular job, and there was nothing to do. And a colleague of mine started to play this game, the which what would you prefer game, and I just thought that it was a good icebreaker,
Yeah.
and it I thought that it was something that I could see, Scott being a bit annoyed about, but yeah, as you said, there is a lot of the either or, and I was glad that you got that whenever you were reviewing the book. It was, yeah, quite integral to the plot.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, it, it it's one of many elements, and again, I'm speaking slowly and being very careful on questions because I'll tell the listeners that we even spoke briefly before starting to record this because I don't want to give this book away at all. I mean, please read it. Um, I found um, that you in no way copy, as I said in the intro, but I found some interesting allusions to other works. Scott McCauley reminds me of a fair bit of Holden Caulfield in Catcher in the Rye. Was that in your head at all? When you were writing it?
Yes, well, I think that once I started the book, initially it had started straight away. He was kicked out of university,
Yeah,
and then I did, it with me. It's a lot of cut and paste and reshuffling parts of the book around. But I was aware that that is pretty much how Catcher in the Rye starts. I was
yeah.
aware of that, and then you picked up on some other things that have obviously went in subconsciously, because that is one of my favorite novels because of the voice of Holden. So I think some of it has went in there without really thinking it through, but I was definitely aware that the whole being kicked out of university was definitely. I must have thought that that was a good starting point for a novel.
Oh yeah. I also love how yeah, I think I can get away with this that you turn the convention on its head that we expect, like literary convention is that a first person narrator talking to um, the reader and particularly writing a diary is always absolutely truthful. You twist that around, you clever thing. um, did that come in the redrafts, or where did that I'm going to play with the readers a bit come from?
Yes, I did plan that he would be unreliable to a certain extent, and then in the redrafts, different things happened that I
Yeah.
was expecting. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get away from the edgy territory of tiptoeing around the plot. Tell me about you. So growing up, did you want to be a writer? Was that your goal for when you were uh, uh, a little girl, or where did that come from?
Yes, I think that whenever I was about 8, we were asked in school it was to write a list of our favourite things, favourite holiday and favourite book, etc. And it said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, "An artist," because I was always into visual arts, or a writer. I just wanted to be either or, a writer or an artist. And I wrote whenever I was a kid. I was always writing. I suppose maybe it was poetry. It was like song lyrics, starting off little novels, chapters here and there. And then um, I did get a few poems published in my teens, and I sent off plays and got quite positive feedback. But I
Mhm.
was really afraid of the criticism, so I never um, I never really went and followed up on any offers to meet up for coffee or anything because I was. I realize now, obviously, that getting feedback and critiqued is really, really vital whenever you're writing. But there was definitely something stopping me from pursuing it. And then I had my family, and it was only after I was in my early 30s and I'd finished having my family that I thought, kind of give myself permission to try to go back and do it, do the things I wanted to do, and try to make it as set myself a challenge of writing a book. And it might have just been one book, but got quite addicted.
Do you still tinker with plays at all? Because one other thing I noticed, and it all makes sense now, is that you have a razor sharp ear for dialogue. Like it really reads real.
Thank you. Um, well, the thing was that probably, yeah, about this time 2 years ago, whenever the bones of it was an idea, I had just been to a playwriting. It was a week of playwriting workshops, and so I was developing the characters, and I saw it all very visually. But whenever I spoke to a dramaturg, I just realised that it was a lot of back and forward and back, and with a young family, I thought I can't do this. This has to be a book. Playwriting is something I definitely think that I'll look into down the line. But yeah, it started off as a play, if I'm honest.
Really?
It's the dialogue that really it. That's how I first, I think, explored Scott and Duke, and I had the restaurant scene and the Christmas scene where I was kind of, having to pull over at the side of the road and think that this is what Duke would say to Scott, and vice versa. Yeah, so I think a lot of it, the dialogue was coming through really strongly to me.
Yeah, I could see how that would work with flashback scenes, etc., etc. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. You see, I keep finding new things in the bones of it, which is why it stands out. Is that a couple of days later? Oh, I wonder if that was because of that.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, yeah. So, when you had the book done, how did you go about getting it published? And you have been being published before, as you say. What was the reception like from publishers?
Well, I had a different book with the publishers, with Liberty's Press, and whenever they were reading their submissions and they got in touch and they said, you say that you're writing another book, how's that going? And I was able to say, well, I've just finished it, and thankfully, they went for it, and I'm really grateful that they believed in the book. So it took a long time because the first book I sent it out, and I think I learned all about the rejection process and the submission process, and I think it's vital to do this, and then submitting to literary journals and competitions, and having a few pieces in journals and getting shortlisted or runner-up in different short story competitions, and it seemed to be different little successes, and which was great. And with the bones of it, before it was picked up, it was sent to an agent who was considering it, and it was sent to another publisher who was considering it as well. But they both came back with different things that they were both contrasting. So it reminded me too that it is very much subjective how your book is perceived, and that they both didn't come back and say the same negative things about it. It just gave me confidence too, and then obviously it was redrafted and edited again before it went out. But yeah, it just seemed to be getting a little bit further and a little bit further, and it's a long process. I don't think very many people just write their first book and it's published. And I think there's it was step by step.
Yeah, yeah. I'll say on the top 10 list. Yeah, I know. And the reaction tends to be to, the first criticism is that either the ego crumbles or, and you never hear from what may well be a talented writer again, or they choose to become stone deaf. Well, you don't understand me. I will put out my work anyway. And again, you never hear from them again. Yeah, yeah. It it's very much a balancing process. Um, and you co-founded the Square Circle Writers Group in your hometown of Newton Ards. So I imagine that a fair bit of the discussion goes into that. Do, 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 do you find that a writers group has a tendency to either be people speaking without listening? In other words, they proclaim their own greatness, or are they actually helpful? You know.
Yes. I think we were lucky in the Square Circle that it was a group of us who had been to writing classes, evening classes, with a great writer and facilitator called Caroline Healy. And so we all knew each other for a year and a half, a couple of years from going to these classes, and we just wanted to keep it going at the end. So it's a very small group, but we're all very supportive, and it's poets and playwrights and people who write for children or young adults. So everybody's doing something different, but I can see in past workshops that have taken part in that there are definitely, a good mix of characters, shall we say. But it's a great, we're lucky with the group. It's a good supportive group.
And you're also an editor of the Incubator. If listeners would like to pick up or order a copy of that, what's the Incubator about?
Yes, it started because I was being invited down to South to go to different journal launches. If I got a poem or a short story published, they would say, "Come down, we're going to have a launch." I just started to really see that there was nothing like that in the North, and there was a lot to do with poetry in the North, and nothing really celebrating the short story. So saw that there was a bit of a gap for that, and myself and a writer friend, Anne Kaki, we started up the Incubator. So it focuses on the short story, but we have interview and reviews, and once a year we'll have memoir, and once a year we'll have essay, and one scene plays and poems. So I think it's trying to do something that isn't really being done. And it's online, but people do like to, it's print on demand. People do like to buy a copy, and we don't get any profits or anything. It's really just a labour of love that we do, and we try to have launches it's a quarterly journal. So every few months we'll have a public launch, and everyone will be invited to come and read to an audience.
Oh, lovely. So, how do you like being an editor? Because, of course, it means dealing with weak, fragile, yet boastful egos of writers. How do you enjoy that balancing act?
Yes, I think it's definitely gets easier as you've been doing it for a while. It's great, and I think that that really the best thing are the launches, because whenever you're back and forwards on email with people and reading their work, it's only one dimension, but whenever you meet the people and afterwards all of the contributors in one journal, they'll link up on Facebook or Twitter, and you can see from there that they're supporting each other. So I think that the launches are a real vital part.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I do find, since I've moved moved over here and have gotten to know um, more writers and editors and publishers and so forth. I don't know if if it's that um, because our island as a whole only has around 6 million people, north, south, or whatever. But yeah, it is very supportive, and I have loved how writers have said, "Oh, like I'm glad you interviewed me. Let me tell you about so and so." It's very much a large for its size, but very supportive community of writers here.
I believe so. I think that was one of the real things that I've learned through doing the incubator, is that it is supportive, because before that I was submitting out to journals, and you would either get an acceptance or a rejection. But I think it's very easy to feel isolated because you are writing by yourself, and if you're not going into any classes, I think you could go a bit stir crazy. But whenever
Welcome to my world. Yeah.
I think whenever you go out to literary festivals, or you're doing something like a literary journal, and you're in touch with a lot of people, it really opens your eyes at how supportive people are towards each other's work. I think it's great that there is a real collectiveness about people who are writing in Ireland.
Truly. What's the best piece of writing advice that you were told, that you've read or heard? Is there a little mnemonic, that you'd care to pass along?
Yes, I think that you do just need to read and read, and it's a thing I was guilty of in the past. But you do have to listen to other people's feedback. I think it's really vital, because if you're just starting off, you could be making the same mistakes that are stopping you from getting published or going where you want to go. But you have to make sure it's someone whose opinion that you trust and that you value. But yeah, just be open-minded and not think that I'm doing it this way, and that's just it. If you want to get better at writing, you have to listen to others.
So what are you working on now?
Yeah, I've just finished putting my short stories all into a collection, and so now I'm getting back to a novel that I started a good while, about a year ago, and I'm just redrafting that. And it's a police procedural novel, so it's more crime, more your typical crime, I think, than the bones of it.
Oh, I don't think that you can write anything typical. I'm sure that it's going to be brilliant, brilliant, good.
Thank you.
So now, what I call the advertisements for my self portion of the show. How do people find more about you, or get the book or whatever? So any websites or upcoming appearances or anything at all that you would like to share with the the listening audience?
Yes, you can follow me or add me, and I'll follow back on Twitter at Kelly Creighton. And I'm going to be part of a crime panel with Jason Johnson, who's also a Liberties published author, and that's going to be in Bangor in the Aspects Festival on the 23rd of September.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I may just come up for that because Bangor's a beautiful town.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Is a Kelly, thank you ever so much for doing thoughts, comments, opinions. And again, I urge the listening audience go to Amazon or Liberty's Press directly and please get a copy. Thanks, Kelly. Have a
Lovely.
brilliant day.
You too. All the best. Thank you, Hubert.
Cheers.
Bye.
Once again, I'd like to thank our guest, Kelly Creighton, for appearing on Thoughts, Comments, Opinions. And a little later today, I'm going to be talking with the oil painter Anne Quinn. Coming up later in the week, we'll be talking about a quite incredible project going on in Israel, translating novels and poetry from Arab to Hebrew and vice versa. And who knows what we'll be doing after that. There'll be some more surprises. Anyway, as always, I hope that you come visit us on our archives. Send me your thoughts, your comments, your opinions. I love reading them. And if you have it in the heart to support our Patreon campaign, truly appreciate it. But for now, from all of us who work the late shift here in beautiful Ireland, good night, everybody, and be seeing you.